All right, everyone. So thanks so much for joining us today. We're coming to you live from our Somerville office here in chilly today, Somerville, Massachusetts. Again, if you have any questions along the way, feel free to type them in the questions box. We'll answer them as we go. So joining us today are John Lucania and Amber Fallon. I'll just get started with a few housekeeping items. So first off, this class is being recorded. It'll be sent to you an hour after the session ends. And please don't forget to take the exit survey on the way out. But I'll remind you at the end of the session. So just before we get started, I just wanted to give you a quick overview before we dive in. I want to make sure that everyone understands who SmartBear is and what we're all about. SmartBear focuses on providing software quality tools for teams. Specifically, our goal is to infuse quality and speed into the entire software development lifecycle. And not to get into the details here, but I want to share the breadth of the SmartBear product portfolio, covering the entire software development life cycle from development to testing to operations across both the API and UI layer. Our products enable teams to deliver the best software faster than ever. We offer a ton of training options. In addition to our AlertSite 101, we also host an AlertSite 201 that covers advanced topics. These are both every other month, and you'll see right here on this next page, our next one is coming up November 15th. Feel free to register for that. Again, we cover advanced topics, and if there's any questions about that, again, feel free to type that into the questions box and we can answer that as we go, or I can answer those at the end of the session. So again, John Lucania is joining us along with Amber Fallon, both technical engineers, and I'm Lauren Parker. I'm a customer success manager here at SmartBear for AlertSite. So I'll pass things over to John and Amber so they can get things started.
Excellent. Thank you, Lauren. So today's agenda, we're going to cover a few things. The first thing we want to start out with is one of the most basic things that you do when you start with AlertSite, creating a monitor. John is going to walk you through the monitor creation process, talk about some of the options, and looks like I lost my agenda slide. Sorry about that. So we're going to start with monitor creation. John's going to walk you through creating a monitor, talk through some of the changes that have been made to the interface recently and some of the options that we have as far as building out a monitor goes. From there, we're going to move on and talk about the dashboard, customization options on the dashboard, making it your own, and different things that you can do to create the dashboard setup the way that you'd like. And then we're going to wrap it up with scheduling and creating of reports. There are a lot of information available in the AlertSite console, so we're going to show you how to get the best out of it and all kinds of reports that we have available for you. Again, there is an option for you to ask questions at any time. If you have any questions at all about AlertSite, about what John is covering, about anything else relating to the platform, please feel free to ask them in the questions box. I'm going to be monitoring it the whole time, and I will answer questions. And if there's something specifically relevant, I'll hand it over to John to show you a physical demonstration of what it is we're going over. So John, let's get started with creating a monitor.
Fantastic. So I'm going to share my screen here, and we'll take a look at the AlertSite console. All right, great. So we're all now looking at the AlertSite console, SaaS-based solution, hosted within the cloud, answering the three fundamental questions. Is an application available, functionally correct? And last, is it fast? And if not, tell you about it directly on the dashboard, which we'll review a little later in the presentation, or more passively via the charting tool or reporting engine. So let's first go create some monitors. So what are our actual workflows we're going to take a look at? So let me drag something over from another monitor. Let's walk through these examples. The first monitor we're going to create is the simple up-down check. Let's go to Wikipedia. Let's make sure it's there. It's 200 OK, piece of content is there. Simple as that. Up, down, are we alive? But most people don't go to Wikipedia to look at a single page. They interact with it. So then we'll create a transaction flow using our script recorder, go back to Wikipedia, we'll log in. Conveniently, I have a login. And then we'll search for a term, hockey. Make sure the result comes back and the actual product page, hockey, is there, as well as maybe the word puck. The last thing we'll do for monitor creation is an API flow. And we'll create a pet against our pet store REST call, and then we'll post that information with JSON right here. That's the flow we're going to go through. Let's go first grab our single endpoint. Let's walk you through how to do it. So for monitor creation, in the upper left-hand corner, go to Add New, and we have three options here. The one we're going to focus on is monitor creation, but as you can see, there are groups and views here as well. For our new users, this looks like maybe the first time you're seeing this. For our current users, it's going to look a little bit different. We made some modifications to the workflow last Thursday. Now we're seeing the interface here instead of the interface you've seen last time where it split out a panel. Web. So there's two ways of creating a web monitor. We can create a single endpoint or we can record a monitor. But we're here to record a monitor against a single endpoint. That being a URL. So let's put that in here. We have our destination. So the measurement plan, what is that? Well, we have two models. We have our external network, which consists of locations throughout the world, places like right here in Boston, or internal monitors, which are private locations you will deploy. We'll touch on that as well. Let's first put you on the external network, which is UBM. We're not actually going to use a browser because this is a simple up-down check. We're just making a GET request against the page. There's two dimensions you want to focus on: time and location. When is the monitor going to run? And where is it going to run from? So we know we're on our external plan, UBM. We have our destination. Time-wise, we want to determine how often the monitor runs. Typically, Amber, how often do our customers choose to run their monitors?
Well, that depends on the customer. We can go as frequently as once a minute or as infrequently as once every 2 hours. I'd say the bulk of our customers are running at about 5-minute intervals.
Fantastic. So we'll stick with 5 minutes here. The timeout value, while it shows us 30 seconds, you certainly could raise it here as well. We generally recommend moving the timeout value as high as possible within reason and not lowering it. If you want a monitor to fail or to notify you for the monitor performing slowly, or a monitor that's degrading, there's other ways of doing that, which could include performance alerts, which you'd set up here. The monitor note, this allows you to communicate information that's specific to this monitor on the actual dashboard itself. We'll talk about that when we're looking at dashboards, but let's type something in here. You don't need to adjust the monitoring mode. Take it as its default, global verify, which basically says upon failure, fire again, and verify if it's an outage rather than a single point in time. All right, we have our configuration. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to go to locations. Where am I going to monitor from? Well, we have locations as far away as Auckland, New Zealand, to close to home again for our Fort Lauderdale developers for AlertSite. Amber, what do you think would be some good cities to monitor from?
Well, Memphis, Tennessee is one of my favorites. I love their barbecue, so let's go there. Also, Dublin, Ireland. We have a great team out there, so let's go from Dublin, Ireland as well. And maybe Beijing, China.
Okay, so let's go find our first node, which is Memphis. Now, there's something different about Memphis. Memphis is one of our newer nodes that we deployed. And then you mentioned Beijing.
Mm-hmm. And Dublin.
All right, so let's go to Asia. Let's go far out, all the way out Europe now. I understand there's some, oh, we're in Dublin already. I understand there's something happening in Ireland today, or just happened.
Yeah,
What's
the
going on there?
hurricane. That's scary stuff. We've faced it in the United States, and now it's hitting our friends in Europe. So we definitely hope for the best for them.
Right, and we actually have an office as well in Ireland, in Galway. All right, so we have our locations. You click Start Monitoring now.
Yep.
Completed. What about if you have an internal-facing application? Maybe that URL cannot be resolved outside your firewall, or it's a pre-prod application. That's okay. What we could do is you could monitor from an internal location. These private nodes would be spun up by you. Basically, they're hypervisors, and we support Hyper-V. And you can see I deployed one in Valhalla. And then on VMware, we have one in Asgard, to not confuse with our real cities out there. We also support AMI for the Amazon cloud. You certainly can deploy these to other cloud vendors as well, and most of the time that would be either Hyper-V or VMware. All right, so we have our first monitor that's created. We click Start Monitoring now, and off you go. All right, fantastic. Now there's something else here on the sidebar I want to share with you. For someone who's not been in the interface maybe in 3 to 5 weeks, we now allow you to navigate through the various monitors. So after I made an edit to this monitor or created this monitor, I could go to another monitor like the Tale of Two Cold Cities. I click on the pencil, which is consistent throughout our interface as the edit functionality. Now I can now edit this monitor or a different monitor in the system. Rather than leaving and going back to the dashboard, you can just stay here and go through all your monitors. All right, let's take a look at another flow. Let's go grab our flow here. We want to create a transaction against Wikipedia, but this time we want to log in and search for a term, and this time it's the term hockey. So let's do that. I'm going to grab our destination. And what we need is our script recorder. So where do you get the script recorder from? Well, if you don't already have it, what you want to do is go to DejaClick.com, Downloads. We have one recorder supporting both Firefox and Chrome. The nice thing is, since the recorders were created by the same development team, there's some good cross functionality between them, as well as scripts will work. Create something in Firefox, run on Chrome, create something in Chrome, download it to local storage, upload it to Firefox, everything will work. So we're going to go build something. I'm going to build something in Firefox. Now it doesn't know I'm on this page, so what we're going to do is we're going to actually make a request for this page again. But let's walk around the interface a little bit first. Like a camcorder, we have a record button. You have an on button. You have a stop button, a pause button, and a play button. The tool is designed to be used by someone who's not necessarily a developer by trade, or maybe even a hobbyist. It's point and click. First thing you do is you clear your cache, because you want to arrive on the page as if you're arriving there the first time. We will maintain the cookie session throughout the transaction, but make sure you clear your cache before creating a monitor and then before playing it back. Now, as you noticed, I've clicked the record button. I didn't create another tab. I clicked the record button within the tab I'm already in. We'll make our request. And now we need to validate the page is functionally correct. We do that by looking for certain pieces of content coming back, a word or a phrase. We leverage that with our keyword wizard right here. Now you could float over various words or phrases on the page, and then you could accept these as keywords. So would the drum machine be a good keyword, Amber?
Definitely not. That's today's featured article, so it may work today, but tomorrow when the article's different, you'll get failures on your monitor. So for that reason, it's better to stick with something that's going to remain static, content that's going to be the same on the page from day to day, week to week, and month to month. Something like Wikipedia would be good. Since we're going to do a login workflow, I would actually recommend using login. That way you can be sure that you're on a page with a login link. So we'll check that. I might also add a validation for the word Wikipedia. You can have multiple validations for each step of your transaction if you'd like. That way you can be sure multiple pieces of content are appearing on the page as expected.
Now, what about a scenario, Amber, where I want to fail the monitor on the presence of content? Do we have that capability?
We do have that capability. There are lots of things that we can do with keyword validations. Under the advanced section, there are some options where we can fail it if something doesn't appear. So if it's not there, we can also use matching case. We can look for whole words or whole phrases. Or we can do in looking for documents or the selected document. So you could do something for a larger field of view rather than just a single item there. So there's lots of different things that you can validate on and lots of different options within the validation.
Fantastic. All right, so we have our two keywords, Wikipedia and login. Now we're going to turn off the keyword tool and continue our journey by logging in our transaction. We now arrived. Now we want to look for our search term.
Well, I would actually validate before you move in. Now, if you add a validation on that word, you can be sure your login was correct, because if the option to log out is there, obviously you've logged in.
Fair enough. Let's do that here. All right. So we'll search for our term. We'll go a little further into the site and look at specific content. Oh, there's our word right there, puck.
Perfect.
Now we'll stop our transaction. Let's take a look at what we've built. We have a series of actions or page refreshes, and we also have, if we open up the chevrons here, our events, navigation points, clicks, or even inputs. In this case here on the sidebar, I could see the various inputs. That would be our search term. The keywords will be here as well. So let's go look for our keywords. There we go. Login and Wikipedia. Fantastic. You think it'll play back, Amber?
I think so. Looks like we did a pretty good job recording that. So let's first play it back to be sure that it does what we expect and that it works the way that we expect it to work. Now, as John mentioned earlier, before you play back, it's a good idea to clear your cache because everything that exists here now is something that we've just done.
All right, we're ready. Let's do this.
Let's play it back and see what happens. Now you'll notice while John is playing back this transaction, everything that DejaClick is interacting with has a green box that appears around it. So you can follow along and see what DejaClick is doing and where it is in the scope of navigation. As it continues going through the journey, it's going to go and follow the exact steps that John did while we were recording. And if it notices an issue, if something isn't loading correctly, if something is working, we have this pop-up that comes up with the DejaClick Replay Advisor. You have a few options here. We can skip to the next event, which means moving to the next click-through or the next action. We can stop the replay, or we can continue waiting. In this case, let's go ahead and skip to the next event. And then after playback, if everything works okay, the Replay Advisor is going to automatically adjust that script. It's going to optimize it so that it follows that new workflow. Looks like everything has played back successfully, and we are good to go.
Okay, so you could take this script, you could save it to local storage right here. We want to upload it. So you want to jump in your account. Let's do that here. You go to the globe, you give the transaction a name, but there's another option here. Replace existing transaction. This allows you to take a transaction and override it with a different transaction. So if you do this, what will happen is it's going to maintain all the historical data and configuration associated with that monitor, but maybe you made a quick edit to the keyword, maybe one of the input fields, or maybe you pinned the script forward, made it longer.
This is also great if you've made changes on your website, something that would alter the way that your script works, and you want to maintain the historical data because it's essentially the same monitor, but you want to update it for the new workflow.
Now you see some options here for the interval. You don't actually have to select this. You could keep the default, and then you could change it on the other side on the configuration panel by clicking through the pencil, and I'll show you how to do that on the dashboard. Or you could actually change it here as well, if you so choose. The option to monitor 4 minutes, 3 minutes, 2 minutes, and 1 minute will be presented to you in the interface, not just on the drop-down here. This also allows you to update the browser. So maybe you've created it in Firefox and want to upload it to Chrome. This is where you do that here as well. All right, so we're not going to upload it. We have this monitor running. We've had this monitor running for some time, so let's just close this out here. And let's take a look at our other flow.
Now remember, if there are any questions about anything John is doing or anything else related to AlertSite, you can feel free to ask them anytime in the questions box.
So now we want to create an API flow against Pet Store. So let's go grab our endpoint. Let's go back to our interface. And to create a new flow, I'm going to go Add New, Monitor. I'm going to use our first option here, Single Endpoint. Now this is new for a lot of customers as well. We actually made a change last Thursday and moved some of the panels around here. We know it's a post, so we support all the methods here. Now let's change the body of what we're going to paste. So I'm going to go grab the body, the JSON post from the other screen here. We can't commit this just yet because we need to determine the actual payload, what's being sent. We need to tell the system that this is JSON. All right, so let's go validate this. Looks right to me.
Looks good.
And if you want, you can even create some assertions.
So assertions, just like those validations that Sean showed you with the data click monitor, are a way for you to verify that what's coming back is what's expected. It's a way to prove that not only are we getting something back, but we're getting back what you expect.
So I want to make sure Ren returns back in the response. That's what we got that here. And then it's all about the two dimensions, time, and of course location. No different than creating a monitor earlier where we looked at monitoring every 5 minutes and from a group of locations that are important to us. There's another thing about time that we want to think about. What happens if you want to create a blackout window? What happens if you want to create a scenario where the monitor actually shuts off at 3 in the morning on a Sunday? Well, you could do that. Let me show you where you could do that. Let's start monitoring now for this one. Let's give it a name, though. So now you go to Monitor Summary, or you can go to any of the monitors, like the Wikipedia one here, and you can go to our arrow right here. In the lower right-hand tile, Schedule Blackouts. And then you choose the one that works for you. All right, so we walked through monitor creation. We looked at building a transaction, a single endpoint, and an API flow. Let's go now and look at our dashboard, making the dashboard your dashboard. A 20,000-foot view of all the monitors in the system here. The dashboard refreshes every minute. You can click down right here And you could pause the dashboard from refreshing if you're trying to make a point to some of your coworkers and you don't want the monitors to resort based on their performance or availability, because they will sort based on availability and performance towards the upper left-hand corner here where we have our 2 monitors in failure. I'm a bit concerned. Monitors that are failing in my demo account? Wonder what could be going wrong here. Maybe we should take a look at it, Amber.
We should definitely take a look. That bright red in both the indicator up at the top and the availability bar at the bottom of those tiles tells us that something is wrong. This is a great place to start looking and see exactly what that is. Each one of those availability bars that John has his mouse over right now indicates an hour of time. So we can click on any one of those and get a better view into what happened during that time frame.
Okay, well, let's take a look at our new user, Luke Bank, one first.
So here you can see on the scatter plot to the left, everything in it failures are indicated by a red icon. Now we have recently implemented a change where each one of those icons is a different shape, indicating that it's coming from a different location. So that can help to narrow down a specific location that might be experiencing issues versus a general failure. In this case, since every location is showing red, it means every location is failing. And we have a status 7 there. By mousing over any one of those locations, you can get more information. Timestamp information, status, location, and response time. So here we can see that we're encountering an HTTP error. That's a status 7 right there. And by clicking on the individual run, you can drill down and get even more detailed information. From here, we can see snapshots, we can get header and source data, we can view full waterfall charts. We can also see that the script repeats every time. And as John mentioned earlier on in the setup, global verify means that we're making sure that a failure is a legitimate failure. It's not just a temporary hiccup or a blip in the grand scheme of things.
So let's find out why it failed. Now, given this is a browser-driven monitor, we have that screenshot you were speaking to indicated by the camera. Oh, look at that. 500 error right from the app server. That's not good. We have to talk to our developers. This would also be attached to the recipient email that we'd be sending as well.
And this is a great thing to provide to those developers or to whoever is in your operations center who might be responsible for fixing this. It can drastically reduce the mean time to resolution, or MTTR, because you're not asking them to start from scratch in finding a problem. You're able to provide them a screenshot as well as detailed information about exactly what went wrong, when, and where. And having that information handy rather than having to root around and do data mining to get it can drastically lower the time it's going to take to get things back up and running.
Let's take a look at another monitor that's failing. This is the card request with shuffle. This is an API call that goes to an open deck of cards and then shuffles the deck in the second request. But it's been failing. It's been failing for some time. Again, I have some concerns. On the tile, I could see it's running every 2 minutes. So this must be an important monitor. Let's go find out what happened. We'll go to our most recent failure here. Now, since it's not a browser-driven monitor, there's no screen capture, but we have the equivalent of a screen capture, which is the original request, the response, and any of the assertions associated with this particular API monitor. You click through this icon right here. Okay, so we have an assertion looking at the remaining JSON node, and there's a comparison saying I'm expecting a value of 50, but I got back 0. 50, by the way, is a number of cards that should be remaining after you draw 2 cards from the deck. But there are no cards there at all. I see the request is right, draw 2 cards, but what happened here? Well, if we look at the response, it's pretty clear. There are no cards in the deck. Something's happened. That's why this monitor is failing.
And that's another great way to diagnose issues, or at least get a start on diagnosing what may be wrong with your websites, or in this case API calls, before you've even gotten to the operations center who might be responsible for resolving those problems.
Okay. Why don't we take a look at its success? And we'll look at one of our monitors here that draws our eye. Any particular monitor that draws your eye, Amber?
I like that Yahoo monitor right there. Yeah,
Okay.
that looks like a good one.
All right, so let's jump into one of these segments. In fact, we can even narrow down what we're looking at by taking advantage of our filter here. And we're just going to look for any monitor that has Yahoo in the name. There we go.
That certainly made that a lot easier to find.
Exactly. Things look a little different on this page here. The monitor is successful, but I see a little red. So we implemented last week a performance indicator. Basically, look back the last 7 days and compare it against the baseline. This result is over 300% above the baseline. You also could see by floating over the waterfall all the metrics associated with this monitor. If my eye goes back to the tile, it looks like something happened here as well. Look at that, it pops up. So the baseline clearly was more stable, and then something happened. Well, now the results are coming back, 300+%. Let's look at another one.
And this is a great way to see if you've implemented changes on the part of your website, what changes they have as far as your user experience. So it's possible in this case we changed application servers, or we stopped using a CDN for some of our images or something of that nature. And this is a great way to pinpoint exactly what change that had on the front end of your website.
Right, this one's 500%. You can even drill further down if you want by looking at the waterfall itself. And what we'll do is we'll sort all the domains, their performance, and then we'll sort by size as well. So here we have the slowest objects. Then we also have the largest objects and other information relative to that particular run. You can look at all domains, or we can just look at in domains as well, or out of domain, and then it'll resort. Okay, but what happens when I want to maybe just look at Yahoo, and that's it? Is there a way of doing that without creating a filter? Well, you can. What you could do is you can create your own views. So you go to Add New, View, and then here in the sidebar, determine what monitors you want to look at. You certainly could search for them. If you have a naming convention, that's prod versus dev, and you type in dev here, and all your dev monitors show up, right? Or you could just manually enter the monitors by going to the pick list and then saving that view with a name. If you click on the lock, you're not going to share your work with other coworkers. It's only a view you can see. If you click the ribbon, which is the more important icon in this workflow, it's going to make it your default view when you log into the dashboard. So this would be the only thing you see. Now, nothing would stop you from changing the filters manually and navigating away from this view, but it would be your default view. Amber, am I limited to just one view?
You're not. You can have as many views as make sense to you. I've personally seen customers using a lot of different views so that they can see a lot of different things in different circumstances. Some of my customers use only the API monitors as a view so that they can take a quick at-a-glance look and see how the API performance is doing. Some of them also use just fail, just success. Some of them will use specific monitors, like John mentioned, maybe dev versus prod, maybe a specific region, or any variable that you can think of. You can have multiple different views and you can switch between them to make sorting through your monitors quick and easy.
So I just got a tap on the shoulder. Apparently they fixed a car request with the shuffle. So Amber, I guess we could just sit here 2 minutes and wait for that to happen?
We could, or we can test it on demand. That's a way for you to run the test at any time you'd like. It's a great way to see if a problem that has been recurring has been really addressed, or if it continues. It's also a good way to see if the issue is occurring right now.
So you just click down the tile, and then you want to hit the rocket. It's going to spin up either a browser or the API playback agent. In this case, it's the API playback agent SOAP UI, which we have a compatibility with, one of our SmartBear solutions. And test on demand is, well, look like it failed. The developers said I'm going to have to do some more work. But this result here stays in test on demand. So if I close it out, it's like it never happened. It won't trigger a notification, and it also won't pollute your run data with additional failures or successes depending on what you're trying to accomplish. But that toolbar here, there must be some other functionality there. So let's take a look. We have that pencil we spoke to. That gets you to the edit functionality, all the configuration data for that given monitor. We already took a look at the arrow that gets you to our summary page. We have the compare functionality that allows you to look at the monitor from a chart or compare different locations against each other, and we can take a look at that in an advanced session. But then we have some other advanced functionalities rolled out about 2 months ago. The share link. What happens if I want to share that tile with other people without having them log in? You could do that. So you could grab this link here, and look at that. And that's a live link too.
And this is a great way for you to, again, share data with someone you don't want to have log into AlertSite. I've seen a lot of customers use this functionality for cases where they don't want to have user ID and password for everyone who might just want to see status on a monitor or two once in a while. It's also a quick and easy way to view the data that you need to view without having to worry about logging in or sorting, filtering, looking at views, trying to figure out what data you want. What you need from that specific tile is available in that link with that resource, and it is live.
All right, great. Let's go back to our dashboard. There's also the monitor note. The monitor note, let's close out our share one here. Allows you to add information on the tile itself.
And the monitor note is a great way for you to communicate cross teams. In the situation John mentioned earlier, where we're checking to see if that SOAP UI API call has actually been fixed, the ops team can let you know that they're working on the problem, and then they can update it with statuses, and you can let them know that you just tested it on demand and it's still failing.
Great. So I guess that's it. We just have the tile view.
Well, we have the tile view, which can work because it provides a lot of information in a fairly nice array of space. We do also have a list view as well. Personally, I like the list view because it's a quick and easy layout of everything that I'm looking for. If I've got a lot of monitors, it can be a little easier to view.
Right, the filters work as I had originally there. You've seen the filter working, or you can just look at all the monitors like you can with all the tiles. Oh, look, Wikipedia is returning data right now.
Excellent.
And that same toolbar is available to you. If you float over the monitors, you can see that toolbar on the right-hand side right here.
It's the same basic information. It's just laid out in a slightly different way. Instead of tiles, you have a list with all that data spread out across the page. And it's completely up to you which one you'd like to see better. Again, the information is exactly the same. It's a personal preference.
So there's a bell here. I thought that originally was because we're in Boston, right? But it's not. The bell indicates that the monitor has been enabled for notification. That doesn't mean the monitor is alarming or failing. It just means that you've turned on the alerting system. There will be scenarios where you may want to turn it off, and then the bell will disappear. Quick way of looking across all your monitors to see if they're configured to send alerts to the various recipients associated with the recipient groups. Oh, look, example 101 is returning data as well. Okay, the last thing on the dashboard I want to share with you is the color palettes. We have the one we're looking at now, which is the dark mode, and then we could bring the light by clicking on the sun. Same interface, different color palette. It will remember your selection, so if you log in again, this is what you would see if this is what you left with. All right, so the next thing we want to take a look at is our reporting engine. But before we go into the reporting engine, I want to have something else to look at. I want to report on SLA compliance. So you go to SLAs.
So SLA, or Service Level Agreement, is a set of guidelines about how fast your website is, how much it's available versus how much it's up. It's an agreement that you may have with your customers, that you may have internally, or that third parties may have with you.
So with that SLA, there may be some scenarios where even though right now I'm looking at, well, I'm confident 100% in 2 seconds, right? It's obviously an aggressive SLA. What happens if I have downtime where it's planned downtime, Amber?
Well, we do have the ability to add a blackout window to our SLAs. If we know we're going to be doing maintenance or there's going to be a change to the server, maybe we have a really big sale that could impact our response times. By adding an operating period or an exclusion, you can set regularly reoccurring windows for things like scheduled maintenance. And by adding exclusions, you can set things like that surprise sale that might make your response time spike unexpectedly.
Okay, so let's go report on this SLA of 100%. While it looked pretty good for a day, let's look further back. And what we're going to do is we're going to go to the reporting engine. And as an introduction to reporting, we'll pull that SLA. So we'll look at an SLA detail report. We'll grab that monitor. So only show monitors that have SLAs on them. And there's that first one, basic auth and logout. That's the one we're looking at earlier with 100% commitment. Let's grab all our locations, but this would allow you to unselect locations if your SLA is only for Fort Lauderdale. You certainly can monitor from other locations, but not report on them. Let's pull it further back. Let's go back. Let's see, this month. The SLA report is designed to be consumable by someone who's not necessarily an owner of this tool or an author of the monitors. Makes it really simple. So we have our actual versus our goal, 100%. We are compliant, though we're not compliant with our response time, though at 2 seconds it is a bit on the regressive side. Our operating variance, we're straight 24/7. And then where are we monitoring from with no one-time exclusions? The reporting engine also has an API behind it. We give you a cheat sheet here how to make that call, and we also have documentation on how to make other calls against our RESTful API. We also could schedule the report, and then you could always come back and edit who the recipients are. There are some other options here. This is relatively new, data filters. There may be some scenarios where you want to exclude certain error types. Fair enough. You'll make the determination what that is as the owner of the reporting engine. Let's say your certificate's broken and you don't want that to impact your availability because you may have not renewed your certificate, but it's not really impacting the ability to deliver the application for the end users. They just have to click through, the certificate's invalid. So you could drop those errors from the system and rerun that report right here. This works for all the reports. Let's create another report. And let's go down to the detail report. Let's grab the same monitor, same locations, and we're going to turn on all information. Get our scatter plot and every single run. Let me just make sure our time frame's set. All right, we're in good shape here. Let's go grab that data. So we have the performance over time. There's not a lot of data in this report. Just not running that frequently. We have our scatter plot. Then we have the individual runs. Now there's some metrics here I want to draw your eye to. We have the over-the-wire look, which is DNS, response times, first byte time. But then we have all these other metrics here, download and page load. What do they represent? Well, given that we use a browser, we have visibility into the document load time, the page load time that's provided from the browser. The document load time is when the document tree is complete, and all the assets needed to paint the page from the original request are within the browser. Generally, the way pages are painted today asynchronously, a good portion of the page could already be painted or all the page could be painted. Page load represents when the last object was painted to the page from the original request. Sometimes you'll see a response time, full page response time, longer than the page load. That's because you're loading objects after the page load is complete. Generally, those are marketing technologies or data collection tools. But why don't we take a look? And we can go to the waterfall by clicking on the piece of paper here. We have a lot of different ways of getting to this information. On the quick panel, we showed you how to get to the waterfall by clicking waterfall, but now we're going to click the little piece of paper in the reporting engine. And then we're going to click through our colored bars here. Look at that, there's our waterfall. A relatively light page, but we could see the original request up top all the way down to some of the calls, some data collection calls from Mozilla, being Firefox. And then some third-party calls to Google here as well. This data being collected is collected for every single run at this level of fidelity for not 1 day, not 33 days, 90 days, with the option of collecting it up to 24 months if you so choose. We don't drop the data sets. So the data 35 days later, 15 days later, 89 days later is exactly the same. All right, let's go back to our reporting engine again. What happens if I want to change the actual report itself and the schedule associated with it? Where do I do that? Well, I'm not creating a new one here. I want to change one that's already running. So I go to Reports, Document Manager. This is a repository for all the reports that you've created, including the schedule reports, and conveniently we have a little calendar icon. This allows you to change things associated with this schedule report. Which monitors is it associated with? There will be some scenarios where you may not want to send all the monitors in the report. It's the summary report. You may want to isolate to just a few. I always recommend changing the name of the report to be based on the applications you're monitoring. Are you going to embed it or create a hyperlink? A PDF, maybe just text. And then down below, there we go, our recipients. Those names look familiar. They look like they're almost the same. This is where you change or edit them.
Now there is also a bulk add option, so if you have a whole bunch of email addresses that you want to add at once, they're comma separated, so you can just copy and paste them right into there and send the email to everyone on a list rather than copying and pasting individually.
Okay, so what happens if I want to see how a given monitor performs over time by step? Well, I would do that now with the detail report. I would look at the transaction step report. So let's do that for that same monitor. Basic authentication and log out. I'm going to grab it from one location, and this time here we'll go to Fort Lauderdale. We're going to do all steps, not just one of them. And we're going to grab a little more data. So let's go, let's be bold this month. No filters, all details. Now, our SAS interface has quickly compiled our data to look at it. Look at that. First step, second step, third step. Clearly something happened here. How to report on the various steps for an application, whether it's an API or a web application over time externally. You certainly could do this in other parts of the tool, but this allows you to quickly get to it in the reporting engine. If I want to look at this in the tool itself, the tile structure, I can go to the summary page, and then I could look at it in the performance tab, but let me just go to the availability here. We have these tiles here, and then we have the performance one. We need to choose a monitor that has multiple steps. So let's go to basic auth and logout. And you can see the respective steps here, as well as by step right here. Change the metric. Let's say look at DOM load. Same information. Looking at it for 24 hours, we could look back 12 hours or even out to 7 days or 30 days. Simple and to the point. Any other thoughts on performance over time, Amber?
I think you covered it. We talked about some of the reporting options. You can also, from the document manager that John showed you earlier, rather than just editing the configuration for that scheduled report, you can also look at previous reports that have gone out. So if maybe you don't have access to your email and you want to view a report, you can take a look at any of the reports that you've run right from that document manager screen, and that can be very helpful. It's also great to have everything you've done all in one screen.
Fantastic. Now, the Save Document icon, eventually, if you don't save it, these reports will roll off. But if you save it, the report will be there and maintain its history in the Document Manager. But I always recommend downloading the report so you could have it on your side, because it is your data at the end of the day.
Excellent. Now, do you guys have any questions? Was there any questions that we can answer for you about what you've seen today, or about any of the other basic functionality of the AlertSite console?
So the last report I want to share with you is another common report, which is the outage report. So we're going to go to the outage detail report, and given this is a demo account, we're going to select all the monitors. So this should be pretty large. all the locations, but we're just going to do it for the last 2 days. So how is our demo account doing for the last 2 days? So our SaaS platform, grabbing the data, compiling it, getting in a report form. Looks like a lot of outages.
Yep.
There we go. So there's Luke Bank. There's TV Eurosport. Some of my favorites here are outage durations. A lot of these monitors are set up to fail like every other run. Depends on the scenarios. That's why you see so many of them so short. Where they failed from. Look, Asgard's not doing so well. We may need to bring in some help there. And then the error type. TCP errors. We have SLA timeouts and so forth. I hope yours is much shorter, possibly even blank. So that's what I wanted to share with you today regarding the reporting engine. We have a few more minutes. While we wait for any additional questions, what I'm going to do is I'm going to review the administration panel. So within the interface, we have the ability to change the users of the system by going to Manage Users. And we have a concept of admin, co-admin. The admin and co-admin are relatively the same. They could author monitors, they could delete users, create users, change passwords. The co-admins can't delete the admin, otherwise they're relatively the same. Now the power user is a bit different. The power user can change the configurations of the monitor. They can author monitors, but they can't create, delete, or modify current users in the system, including resetting their password. Our general best practice is to have the majority of users not co-admins, but power users with a few co-admins. And read-only, can't buy or break anything. They can create reports, they can create filters, they can click through the dashboard. They're basically for your new employees or users that you don't have a strong relationship with, and you may want to put on some training wheels with them first. Right, fantastic. So the last thing is we're going to take a look at the account structure. What happens if you want to change your default locations in the system? Manage public locations. So you can always change individual monitors themselves and choose the locations, but if you want every monitor to have the same set of locations, or at least at minimum when you open up the panel that some monitors are already selected for you, this is where you would change them right here. You could see where Firefox and Chrome were deployed, which is pretty much across all 82 locations. All right, so that's it for our one-on-one session today. Amber, any other closing thoughts?
I don't think so. I think you did a pretty good job covering everything.
All right, great. So we're going to hand it back to our host, Lauren.
Did we want to wait another moment or two just in case there are any other questions that might come in?
Sure.
Great. Well, while we wait for other questions to come in, I will just end on my side, and as questions roll in, you guys can answer them. So thanks so much for joining us, everyone, and thanks, Amber and John, for hosting. I just want to remind everyone that our next session coming up is November 15th. I posted the link to that in the chat box, so you can find that in all future trainings through that link. Also, I want to remind everyone that an hour after the session, the recording will be sent out to you. If you want to forward that link along to other people, they'll just have to enter in their name and email, and they should be all set. And when you do exit today, if you could go ahead and take our exit survey, that would be greatly appreciated.
And I do want to mention that class Lauren discussed coming up on November 15th is a 201 session. That's the advanced session. So if you attended today's session, there's a lot more to learn. You'll definitely want to check out the 201 session as well.
Right. In the 201 sessions, we like to change up the content a lot, unlike the 101. So each 201 session will be different from a prior 201 session.
Yeah. Great.
All right. Bye there.
Well, thanks again, everyone.